So for your final in this class, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be studying one organic compound. We'll talk about what that is in a second. And in order to study an organic compound, you got to know how to draw it. You got to know what the picture or the structure of the compound looks like and what it means. And so that's what we're going to be learning how to do today. So we're going to be drawing a lot. If you could see, the lecture is called Drawing Organic / Carbon Compounds. And so let's go into how to do that. So I want you guys to write this formula on your paper right here, CH3, CH2, CH3. Okay, should look kind of familiar. We've looked at molecules like this before. Okay, but just write down the formula. Okay, and so we've learned how to draw these types of molecules, and the way that we draw them is we draw their stick structure. This is what we learned how to do already. And so I'm just going to really quickly go over how to draw the stick structure for this molecule, and then we'll go into the new stuff. So we talked about how if the elements are split up like this, if you guys notice there's a carbon here, 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 hydrogen here, here, and here, it means that that's how they're grouped up inside of the molecule. So this formula tells us what the molecule is kind of going to look like, okay? So I'm going to color code them just so it's easy for you guys to look at. You don't need to color code it, but it's just for your reference. So this red part right here, there's a CH3. That means that we got a carbon in the middle. There's hydrogens surrounding it. So if it's split up like this, it just means they're grouped like that. This blue part right here, there's a C and two H's. So we'll put the C in the middle, and we'll put two H's around that guy. And on the far right, the black part, it's CH3. We'll put C on the middle, and then we'll put the H's on the outside. So we did an example. I think we did this exact same example before, but basically we just need to connect all of the hydrogens to the carbons, and then that kind of gives us our structure. So when the formula is split up like this, we know that they're kind of grouped together in the way they're split up. Okay, so hopefully this is review. We've done this a couple times already, but this is what we learned how to do before. This is called the stick structure, okay? Okay, so if you guys look at this molecule, there's 3 carbons, right? There's 3 C's in the middle, and this is already kind of big and already a little bit annoying to draw, right? Now, once we look at the compounds that you're gonna be studying for your research project, and you get to pick the compound, you could pick things like, heroin, meth, cocaine, whatever. Those molecules are a lot bigger. So the stuff that we're more interested in, right? They're bigger molecules. Like, for example, some of them will be like C17H35O2. And if this is how big 3 carbons is, you can already imagine how complicated 17 carbons is going to look like, right? And so we need a better way to draw these organic compounds. And that's what we're going to learn how to do today. We're going to learn how to draw the skeletal structure, okay? Now, the skeletal structure is actually very easy to draw. The only thing that you need to know are these 2 rules down here. Okay, the first one is you want to turn all the carbons into corners. Okay, so I'll talk about what that means in a second, but jot this down somewhere. You want to turn all the carbons into corners. Okay, so this is rule number 1 right here. Turn all the carbons into corners. Okay, and then the second rule that you need to know is that you're going to ignore all the hydrogens that are bonded to carbon. So if a hydrogen is connected to carbon, we don't draw it anymore. Okay, so it's a little bit less work for you guys. Okay, so those are the 2 rules that you're going to have to write down because we'll be referring back to it constantly. The first rule is you want to turn all the carbons into corners. And then the second rule is you want to turn, or you want to ignore all the hydrogens that are connected to carbon. So if you see a hydrogen that's connected to carbon, you don't draw that. Okay, but if it's connected to another atom, you still draw it. So for example, if you have a hydrogen connected to a nitrogen, you got to draw that. Or if you got one connected to an oxygen, you got to draw that. Okay. So those are the 2 rules that we're going to be working with, and that'll help us draw really complicated molecules very simply, okay? All right, I'll give you guys 30 more seconds to copy down the rules, and then after that, we will turn this stick structure up here into into the skeletal structure. Okay, let's draw the skeletal structure. So I think the easiest way to do this is to first count the carbon. So if you look at your stick structure, which you should have drawn on your paper, let's label all the carbons. We'll say that this guy right here is carbon number 1. Okay. We'll say this guy in the middle, the blue one, is carbon number 2. And then the black one on the far right, we'll call that carbon number 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to replace all the carbons with corners. So what that means is we're going to draw a line. And then the first corner is going to represent this carbon right here, so carbon number 1. And then at the end of the other line is another corner. That's going to represent carbon number 2, so this blue one right here. And then last but not least, we just draw one more line to get another corner, and that's going to represent carbon number 3. So this big stick structure right here, we can draw it like this, and it's the exact same thing. Okay, it means the same thing. Okay, that's it. That's the skeletal structure for this molecule. A lot easier to draw this than to draw that. Okay, now, before you guys ask, it doesn't matter which direction you go. You could draw it like this, or you can draw it like this. The direction doesn't matter. As long as you got 3 corners, you're all good. And for your answers, you don't need to draw these numbers or write these numbers. I just write them so it's easier for you guys to keep track of things. Okay? Okay, not too bad, hopefully. Okay, let's do one that's a little bit bigger and a little bit trickier. Yeah, this is the answer. You just need to draw one of these. Yeah. Okay, let's go to this one, and I'll try this one with you guys, and then I'll have you guys do another one on your own. Okay, so we got this super big molecule. Please don't draw this. This will just be up here for you guys. It's gonna take too long for you to draw this. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna count all of the carbons. Okay, so let's look at this shape. Remember, we ignore all the hydrogens that are connected to carbon. So we can ignore every single hydrogen here. Instead, we just look at the carbon. So there is 1 carbon right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so if you notice, they're all connected together. So we got carbon 1, carbon 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we just need to complete the shape. And there you go. This big, ugly molecule right here, we can draw it like that. Super easy. Okay, so we just look at the carbons. That's the easiest way to do these problems. Just look at the carbons, and that'll give you your shape. Okay? Yeah. No, they all have to be connected because these represent single bonds. What do you mean those? The one above was. Yeah, it's because if you look at the one above, remember they I don't want to draw it again, but if you remember, it wasn't in like a connected shape, it was just in a line. So since the molecule was originally in a line, we keep it in a line like this, because you see how it just creates a line, it doesn't close the loop. Because the C's are connected. Yeah, the first and the third one aren't connected here, so we don't connect it like that. Okay, good question. But if they were all connected, then you would, yeah, exactly. Okay, bless you. Okay, yeah, so this one, since it makes a closed shape, you just connect everything together. Bless you. Okay, you guys ready to try one on your own? All right, I'll give you one that's a little bit trickier, but again, try to count the carbons and follow the 2 rules that we talked about. Okay, so again, the first rule is turn all the carbons into corners. And the second rule is you want to ignore all the hydrogens that are bonded with carbon. Okay, so I'll give you guys about 2 minutes to try that. Check your work with the person next to you, and then we'll go over the answer. Okay, so again, we're going to be counting the carbons. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if you guys notice, this kind of gives you that diagonal shape already. So it gets really easy to just follow that structure. Okay, so we draw a line here, 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 and here. And if you count the carbons, we just want to make sure that we got the same number. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Yeah, we're not done yet. Yeah, we're not done yet. Okay. Okay, now we do have this OH right here. And so what we want to do is we want to see which carbon it's connected to, right? If you look at it, it's connected to carbon number 4. So we just go to carbon number 4, and then we just draw a line, and then we draw an O. That was weird. And then we have to draw the H right here because remember, we only ignore the H's that are bonded with carbons. Okay, so this guy is connected to the oxygen. So we need to make sure that we write the O that's connected to the oxygen right there. So there you go. This is your answer. And typically, we don't draw the numbers. So on your final answers for your assignments, please don't include the numbers. That's only for your reference. Okay. So again, count the carbons, figure out where the connections are, and that'll help you draw the skeletal structure. All right, so we got a couple more examples to go. Yeah. Up here. Okay, so let's go to the next one. They're just going to get trickier and trickier because some of the ones on your assignment are a bit tough, and I want to make sure that you guys have some practice. We'll skip this one. We'll go to this one because it looks a little bit harder. Okay, so again, count the carbons and ignore the hydrogens bonded to the carbon. So I'll give you guys about 2 minutes to try this one as well, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, so same thing for this one. We want to count the carbon. So we got 1 carbon here, 2, 3, and 4. And so let's draw our 4 corners. This one, again, is a bit helpful because it gives you that diagonal line. So we're going to do carbon 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So this one will be carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4. Okay, now this one's a little bit different because if you look at the carbons, if you look between carbons 2 and 3, what do you guys see there? Yeah, double bonds. So you're going to have to draw a second line there to represent that double bond right there. Okay, so you got to include the double bonds. Okay, now we can ignore all the hydrogens connected to carbon. So I can ignore that, can ignore that. We can ignore all 3 of the carbons on the 4th, or all the hydrogens on the 4th carbon. So we got the double bond here. And then if you look at carbon 1, it has a double bond with an oxygen. So we got to make sure we add a double bond with an oxygen. And it also has a single bond with a nitrogen. And this nitrogen has 3 hydrogens, which we got to draw because we only ignore the hydrogens connected to carbon. So there you go. And then don't forget the little plus sign there. And there you go. That's going to be the skeletal form of this guy right here. Okay, so like I said, it's going to get a bit more complicated. And the last one that we do, I think it's pretty tricky, but if you're able to get the next one, then you should be able to do the assignment pretty well. Right. But this is just to prep you guys for the really big molecules that we'll be looking at for the research project for the final. Okay. Any questions? Ready for the last one? All righty. Okay, last one, we'll do this one. Okay, so yeah, this is the biggest one that we'll go over together. Again, count the carbons, see if you guys can get it. And if you get this one, you should be in good shape for the assignment today. Give you guys I'll give you 3 minutes for this one. Okay, so same thing as usual. We want to start by counting the carbons. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the middle. So let's start just by drawing that middle shape. So we got another hexagon. So we're going to make a 6-sided shape. Basically a stop sign, right? Oh wait, that's an octagon. My bad. So like that. It's not a stop sign. Okay, so yeah, 6 carbons in the middle. Okay, now we're just gonna go through every single one of the carbons in the shape to see what's connected to it. So if you look at carbon number 1, it's just a hydrogen, right? So we can ignore the hydrogen on carbon 1. Carbon 2 is also just a hydrogen, so we can ignore that. Carbon 3 is connected to another carbon, so we got to create a corner there. And this guy, I'm going to call him carbon 7. The numbers don't matter. Carbon 7 right here has a double bond with an oxygen, right? So we just make a double bond with an oxygen. And we can ignore the hydrogen here. Any questions so far? Hopefully not too bad. Carbon 4 has a hydrogen, so we can ignore that. Carbon 5 is connected with an oxygen, so we have to draw an oxygen here. And it's connected to a carbon, so we just draw one more line. And we'll call this carbon 8. And this is where carbon 8 is right here. Okay. And then lastly, carbon 6 has an oxygen. And then we just connect the hydrogen to it. And there you go. That is going to be the structure. The only thing we're missing now is the middle, the double bonds. So we have a connection from 1 to 2, 3 to 4, and 5 to 6. Is that what you're going to remind me of?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, what's up?
Were they all on the right? Is it okay if we just like go in straight line?
Oh yeah, straight line is fine. Yeah, the orientation of the line doesn't matter. You can do it the way that we did it. You can do it like that. You can even do it downward if you want to. It doesn't matter as long as the connections are the same. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. So that's gonna be what's on your assignment today. So I'll give you guys the rest of the class for you to work on that assignment. If you do need to make up the quiz, make sure you guys let me know so that you guys can take it. But yeah, good luck. I have the answer if you want to check your answers, and let me know if you guys have any questions.